Good morning, everyone. This is Dogs and Baskets, September 30th, 2021, the year of our Lord.
For me, it's the 1st of October.
It is. Oh my God, it's October. It is October.
October
still
already.
In the US, it's still October. Well, happy Oktoberfest. I'm joined this morning with Alexej Gerstmaier. Gerstmaier!
Yeah, exactly.
Who's reached out to me through my email, dogsandbaskets@gmail.com, and he has some interesting questions. And it's 7 o'clock here on the East Coast, 1 o'clock in Austria, in Vienna. So good morning.
Good morning, Frank. So just to quickly introduce myself and why I have contacted you. I first encountered you like maybe 4 or 5 years ago on Reddit, and then I randomly saw a video of you because I was looking up ambidextrous players, and there was like a video of you where you throw really well with both your hands. And yeah, and I have to say I identify a little bit with you. I'm also a bit of a pariah. Not as much as you. Not as much as you, but I moved to Vienna 6 months ago, and like the teams that are here didn't want me to have them, didn't want me to have them practice with them because of my online postings on Quora that I have since deleted for also like career reasons. But I'm also a little bit ostracized.
These were Ultimate Frisbee related posts?
No, this was more, no, not at all, not related to Ultimate Frisbee. It's more like I'm skeptical of the whole, identity politics,
right,
all the gender bullshit stuff.
Did you catch episode number 3? Well, 2 and 3.
Not yet. I've downloaded them all on my phone because we don't have them on the podcast.
I'll take care of that. But so episodes 2 and 3 are really poignant in this regard. I had this guest on, Matthew Eretz, who's what did I call him? He's a socio-political historian, kind of a he knows all the back players. I mean, we're told the official history over the last few hundred years, but he's much more of a student of all the backroom deals and the influencers over, and how society got molded into what it is today. So he's very familiar with ideologies. So the first was just in general about, it didn't have anything to do with Ultimate, although I mentioned it a couple of times. And then episode 3, I took him through, and for better or for worse, I made this decision. I didn't want him to read the first 3 paragraphs of the USA rules, the original rules for Ultimate, basically. And I just went line by line. I wanted to get that first take reaction, and it's stunning. Like you'll love it. Given what you just said about it's unbelievable what he's able to infer from he knows nothing about Ultimate Frisbee, doesn't know Frank Hugenhardt.
Whoa.
And what he says based on those fruits will blow your mind.
Wow.
And I'll just leave it at that.
I want to listen to the third episode.
It's completely right. It's completely what you're saying.
He makes the correct predictions. He derives the right consequences, right, from the.
At the end, he says this is a recipe for systemic mediocrity, which is what I've been saying for decades. Like this whole, but I didn't realize the cultural Marxism, the postmodern neo-Marxist, identity politics, virtue signaling, diversity, inclusion.
It's all cancer.
Until it's going to have a big boomerang effect here soon, as people start to realize what's happening now in the world. So, and I didn't realize what it was until a couple of years ago. I just was always beating my head against the wall in the Ultimate Frisbee community. Like, why am I not succeeding? I'm really talented. I'm really good. What? And I just, I never really, and I've been building up a body of work in my mind of the rules and everything, but that's really accelerated in the last 2 or 3 years, where I've interviewed Irv Kalb, I'm going to have some other
Yeah,
people on the show.
I read the article in the Huffington Post that you
Right.
posted, where you interview Ulf Kalb. Super
Right,
interesting,
and
mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing, and a lot of that interview went into my show with Johnny Bansfield. I'll probably take that. I recorded that call with Herb. I'll probably make that just a separate podcast episode. It's probably long and boring because it was just a phone call, but it's like people need to understand what the hell this thing is. It's a 19-year-old kid who shouldn't have been inventing sports, mashed up.
Nerd.
Yeah, he's a nerd, which is fine, but like we should actually. Anyway, so go ahead with your introduction.
Well, I feel like the issues that are happening in the US related to the whole culture thing, I think it's even stronger in Europe. I feel like Europe is even more stagnant, even more set in their ways than in the US. I suspect. I'm not quite sure, but in the US you have a more aggressive spirit. You have more ugly mate than in Europe, but not having this in Europe goes to the detriment of the sport. But one question I wanted to. Or like a topic I wanted to get.
Wait. How did you get kicked out of a hat tournament? Was that the same reason in Berlin?
Hat tournament. Well, my team was actually pretty, like in the hat tournament. Yeah, basically that's one of the. Well, I was spiking the disc a lot, but in the fun way. You know, I play the. But it's not to embarrass the opponent. It's because you caught a disc, and in a hat tournament, it's not the German championship. In a hat tournament, I was, making even more fun. And then
it's the whole
and I feel offended. Yeah, then
that's the whole thing is just emblematic, just that one thing. Because who's to say who's the karma police and who signed up?
Exactly. Yeah.
Who's the karma police? Where did they go to? Police academy, the karma police academy.
Yeah.
Who taught them what is and isn't? This is the whole. It shouldn't be
as if they solved ethics, right? As of all the philosophers, they didn't solve the ethics, but they solved it. They know how to behave appropriately and what is like a proper way to act, which is
right. That's ridiculous. That goes against everything every great master has ever taught. There's no karma. Like the universe itself is the karma police. You don't have to have people out there ruling what is and what is not anything. It's not up to anybody to do that. Anyway, so go ahead and what was your point?
My point is, like, the thing I want to ask you, I feel like I agree with you on most issues, but one thing I want to feel what your actual opinion is, and that is the Jewish question. Like, what about, you have like a post on where you like mentioned Jews. And I'm totally pro-Jews. I feel like Jewish people, I love them. They're smart. They have like a super high percentage of Nobel Prize winners because they are intelligent.
They're highly intelligent.
They are super intelligent, and I love them. And I
So what's your question?
My question is, what do you think about Jews and the Jewish religion?
Are you asking if I'm anti-Semitic?
No.
Yes, you are.
No, because
well, no. Let me answer your question.
I get always accused of being sexist or even anti-Semitic or racist or something. So I feel you. I identify with you, but I want to know, like, from in your words, like.
All right. First of all, let me say, and I've said this on another show, but I'll say it again. Diversity's upside down right now. Diversity is not meant to be some amalgamated, egalitarian, equity-based goulash where everybody's the same and everybody, is treated the same and etc. Diversity is meant to be a celebration and honoring of our differences and understanding that every single one of us has something unique to bring to the table. But how can we celebrate and honor our differences if we're not even going to acknowledge those differences exist, right?
I agree.
So that's diversity.
And I also feel like that diversity in your opinions is even more interesting than diversity in your skin color or your gender.
No, well, diversity of thought is the most important.
Exactly.
Diversity.
Yeah.
That needs to be honored.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a huge issue, and people shouldn't be silenced because they think differently. That's bigotry.
Yes.
That's the dictionary definition of bigotry.
Is it? Yeah.
Absolutely. The bigotry means lack of tolerance for non-like-minded thinking. And anywhere in society where we have organizational ideologies, science is ideological, Christianity is ideological, Judaism is ideological, ultimate Frisbee is ideological. Anywhere in society where we have organizational ideologies, we're guaranteed to have institutionalized bigotry. We see it time and time again. So if you look at, and I've got a Jewish story that it's ultimate related and people may take it the wrong way, but I've talked to David Barkin.
Who's that?
He's the guy who started Ultimate Peace, and he's I played with and against him a lot in the Bay Area back in the day about this, and he agreed with this. But 50% of lawyers in the United States are from what religion do you think?
Lawyers?
Yeah.
Well, to be a lawyer, you got to be intelligent.
Well, it's different from it's different.
Well,
I'll just cut to the chase.
It's not going to be Islam. It's going to be something Christian related, I feel like, because there are a lot of Christians.
So it's Catholic.
Catholic. Well, that is kind of Christian, right?
It's specifically Catholic, and then 25% are Jewish. So 75% of this one profession, and it's not lawyers, not doctors and engineers and other things that require a lot of intelligence. And I was raised Catholic, in full disclosure.
Well, being a lawyer requires like verbal intelligence. You need to be good at articulating this.
Hold on. There's something more. There's a reason, and I'm getting at this. This is a very important thing that people need to understand, and why it's relevant when I say that Ultimate was created by Jews. And I understand that Johnny Hines and Buzzy Hellring were instrumental in the first couple of years. Joel Silver probably didn't invent anything. He got it from some summer camp and brought it back to Columbia High School.
He's the movie guy, right? The film producer.
He's the film producer. And then there's Irv Kalb was the guy who was really responsible for canonizing the rules and getting them to what they are. And when I interviewed him, and you'll hear this if I put it on the podcast, a lot of his answers were first person. You can just say, well, I thought this, I was playing flag football, I was doing this, I was doing that.
So it's clear that he had
but back to my ideas about, and if people want to watch my documentary film Beyond Me, this is very relevant, because basically what Beyond Me argues or presents is that reincarnation is the major driving force behind all evolutionary biology, and all the traits and patterns and tendencies that humans have are more instinctive than they are having anything to do with mom and dad and all these issues growing up. And a lot of times reincarnation, from what I've learned, goes through families. So you're going to, you come back as your great grandfather or something like that. So the heritage, the patterning, the tendencies that you have in your thought process are based on your ancestries.
Yeah, of course. They are genetically based on, but you believe that reincarnation is real.
I don't believe anything. I'm a scientist and I'm a philosopher. When I look at all the different models for understanding evolution, by far the most elegant, the most cogent, the most compelling theory, hypothesis for evolution, it's not Darwinism, which has a lot of flaws, and it's not natural intelligent design. The idea that, and we know that life is energy, and energy can never be created or destroyed. I've had a lot of my own experiences that are beyond what science can explain. So the idea that
life is energy.
Sure. Life is energy. Of course it is. What do you think life is?
Well, life is like matter arranged in a certain way, and chemistry.
That's horseshit. That's all ideology. And that's the funny thing is, Alexej, is that ideology started in the same decade as Marxism. In other words, I can draw a direct link into what's happening in society right now with identity politics, with science and communism. It's all linked together. And
Interesting.
The idea that matter is fundamental to existence is what you're arguing.
Yes, yes. Like Sam Harris also says that.
I know Sam Harris is full shit. I'll take him down easily.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Interesting.
There's as much. So the fundamental hypothesis that you're sitting on top of is something called abiogenesis. Okay, fine.
Abiogenesis. All right.
Yeah, that abiogenesis just means that 3.5 billion years ago, a confluence of amino acids, self-replicating molecules, and lipids all happen to be in the right place and time with temperature and oxygen and
and then you have
light and gravity, and poof, life happened. And there's as much evidence for that as there is in the Easter Bunny. There's no evidence for that at all. It's a ridiculous theory. It's bogus. And had the scientific community had in 1840s, when we got both what I call this postmodern science, because modern science has been around since 1543, when books by Copernicus and Berzelius were written on the solar system and human biology, respectively.
All right, but postmodernism is bullshit, right?
But no, hold on. Are you postmodern rock is bullshit? Like, modern science is 500 years old. In the 1840s, science changed so significantly and radically, it needs a new name. I just call it postmodern science because
but is it a positive change? Is it a good change? Is it the next step in the evolution, basically, or is it a devolving?
It's good and bad.
Okay.
It's gotten us all this technology, this high acceleration of things that we can do with manipulating matter, which is what you would like to see out of science. But Alexej, if I like to look at health in 5 levels: our physical health, our health, our physical health, our social health, our emotional health, our mental health, and our spiritual health. On all 5 of those levels, are you with me? Spiritual health, mental health, emotional health, physical health.
I feel like all the things besides physical health seem to me like mental health. But you have further segregated them into different categories, which maybe makes sense. Yeah, there is something different between emotional and spiritual health. Probably it makes sense too.
And social health. If you look at in the U.S., we have these kids coming up with guns and blowing up schools. Those kids have really low social health. Yeah, they have some mental issues and emotional issues.
Yes,
but
exactly.
We're not even addressing social health because social health isn't even considered an aspect. So the question is, Alexej.
So wait, we are both of us are kind of ostracized.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with our social health? Is our social health bad? Or yours? What is the reason? I feel like the reason is the degenerate culture. Like, I don't see the fault in me that much. Maybe that's arrogant.
So I'm very happy being Frank Hugenard. My social health, my social health is better than it's ever been. Both of my parents, not one of my parents, but both of my parents were sexually abused as children.
Wow. Okay.
I was, hold on a second. I was the 8th kid. No, I was the 6th out of 8 kids. When I was 9 months old, and everybody's got a fucking story, but this is mine. I'm a happy man. I'm very content. But when I was 9 months old, my mom lost her mom, and my dad lost his dad to cancer within 2 weeks of each other. Does that have anything to do with me? Probably. I mean, you can imagine all the grief and trauma and drama. And then when I was 13 months old, just over a year old, I had a little brother. So all the attention, what little attention my mom had for me, got diverted to this little thing. Yeah. So
it's
I
the
grew
middle
up,
child problem. Yeah, if you're the middle child, you kind of got forgotten a little bit.
Well, in a family of 8, where my parents shouldn't have been allowed to have a dog. So yeah, I was.
You have some fertile parents.
I had some. Yeah, Catholic family. I had some,
Classic.
you have a window, we humans do, that we're taught between like 3 and 5, where you learn social cues. You divide it, and if you don't develop all your social intelligence in between those ages, or at least the framework for it,
you have like a cap. You can't go over
that you're kind of your whole life you can never build it. You're kind of, I'm much better, in terms, I've been meditating 20 years, and I'm a very content person, and I still, I'm different. I'm thrilled that I'm me. I'm thrilled I went through all that, because it goes back to the diversity thing. All that, whatever shit I went through has created this. And because I don't fit into any category, I'm really non-ideological. And so ideologies to me stand out like a sore thumb. Like anytime someone says, well, this is how it is, I'm like, bullshit. Whereas people with good social health automatically gravitate into those ideologies without even realizing, maybe there's a different way to think. It's just a very natural thing for humans to do, is just to move, because ideologies are social constructs.
Ideologies are dangerous. Yeah, I agree. You can easily get wrapped up in this. I recently read a book by Charlie Munger where he says the same thing. Like Warren Buffett.
Charlie Munger.
It's the Berkshire Hathaway Warren Buffett partner. He has a book, Poor Charlie's Almanac. And then he says, like, one of his tenets is, don't get up in ideologies, because then you get a little bit insane. It makes you a little bit crazy as a human being in a negative way.
I should have him on my show, because ideologies are the all dogs and baskets. Ultimate is a case study in ideologies.
Yeah, it is.
And it's like, so back to your question, we still haven't finished the Jewish question. I love the way this conversation.
Jewish question.
Jewish question. Well, no, I get it. I because I use the J word, I'm anti-Semitic. It's
people always accuse one. Just
right. It's quite sad, because the biggest victims of this anti-Semitism trope are the Jewish people. And it's a long story, but like, why identify as a victim? And identity politics is victim.
That's the victimology thing is always happens in Ultimate. People like to see themselves as a big victim, and then they get social support and benefits.
Because identity politics is based on victimology, and Ultimate Frisbee is based on identity politics. Do you know what the identity? So I've said this in another episode. In identity politics, you identify as an oppressed class. And in an oppressed class, there has to be an oppressor. Do you know who the oppressor is in Ultimate Frisbee? It's in the rules.
The oppressor, the referee. I don't know.
No, it's the
other
player. It's the win at all cost athlete.
Yeah.
Which is a boogeyman argument.
It is a boogeyman. Yeah.
Right. But I'm the boogeyman. I'm the oppressor, because I'm a fucking stud and everyone hates me. Anyway.
Yeah. Relatable. That's very relatable. And people always put forth the whole this dumbass fun argument. But you know what? Winning is fun. Like doing your best athletically, winning is fun. That's what what's fun for me?
What is fun? It's not even winning. Winning means
doing
nothing.
your best. Right. Well, what is fun?
No. Having my boot on their neck. Like when I'm
all right.
when I'm dribbling, and I've got my full arsenal of dribbling tactics, and I got my foot on their neck. Like it's so fun. It's intellectually at a level no one even can. They have no idea the intellectual playground that's happening of. The chess game out there, and I'm doing all these different things, and what I'm accomplishing, and the freaking algorithm in my head that's, okay, I'm going to do this, and I did that. And that's like, it's so far more advanced than anything on the planet, but that's fun, because the leverage dribbling gives you, and then applying that leverage is having my foot on their neck. That is fun for me. And nobody should take that away from me because of some identity politics or some stupid shit. Like that's It's my craft. I am so good at that. I'm the best in the best. No one's ever done this before. And it gets taken away from me because of some stupid ideological differences.
Yeah. I'm actually really interested in dribbling and everything. Like I want to, I am in certain circles, I'm a little bit of a coach, and I want to like incorporate this whole dribbling thing into my teammates. So I want to dominate as well. Like I see the potential in the dribbling. It's or like give and go in general, like even give and go, which is like a weak.
So dribbling is a very refined, and that's why I call it dribbling rather than just because dribbling is extraordinarily refined.
Yeah, the word give and go doesn't capture.
No.
Yeah,
so it's a form of give and go, but that's sort of like saying,
but
I don't know. I'm trying to come up with an analogy, but you get the idea. Science. Hold on. So on 5, let me ask you this question: on all these levels of health, let's just say physical health, but we can. They're all very important.
Mm-hmm.
Are we any healthier now than we were 100 years ago?
I think
we
no.
have
not even on physical health. I think like not even on the physical health front, because of a lot of stuff that doctors and medicine does and pharma.
Right. We have epidemics of opioid addictions, obesity.
People are depressed. They take
people are
depressed.
Suicides, type 2 diabetes, cancer. So when you ask, is science working, or was it a good thing that happened in the 1840s? It's sort of a diversion, a dichotomy maybe, where yes, we've got all this great technology, but the model that they're using, where they've drawn the line between what is and isn't science, that it doesn't look good in terms of, wow, is this really working? Is this the right model? Because because not only, so let's say there's 2 models for life. All right, life is an emergent property of matter. Matter is foundationally the founding.
So you just said life is an emergent property.
No, I'm saying there's 2 different models.
That's one model. That's the model that you disagree with. All right. The emergent property.
Certainly, model. I disagree with it.
All right.
And maybe we don't have evidence. We don't have. Neither of them are provable. Let's say.
All right, but
I'll just concede that
evidence is not evidence of absence, right? Yeah.
So one model says that life emerges from matter, and the other model says that life is of what's the right word? Not foundational. That basically matter emerges from consciousness. And that
the other way around.
The other way around. That consciousness and life are somewhat synonymous. That life is a consolidated consciousness. Every cell and every living being in the universe is a consolidated consciousness, and the consciousness is an epiphenomena, a byproduct of some consciousness beyond space and time. Those are the 2 models. If you sit there, let's just teach society, hey, we got these 2 models for life. And we can't prove one or the other, but at least here's one model, here's the other, and we're taught these. As instead of what science does, it says, well, we can't prove your model, so we're going to go with this one. Well, fuck, you can't prove your model either. Right? So, but then once you get to that point and you say, okay, and like I said, I'll take Sam Harris apart on this. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. From the same emergent property principle of materialism, you have the idea that consciousness is an emergent property of brain function. It's an epiphenomena of chemical reactions and electrical impulses in the brain.
Yeah.
So I wrote an article to the journal Nature. By the way, the science community is going to take decades to recover from this freaking whatever's happening on the planet right now.
Academia is a little
science is going to take years to recover, decades. But we can I wrote this article. All my work is on my website, beyondmefilms.com, including the webcast.
Mm-hmm.
There's an invitation to Sam Harris video that's on my website. I lay out my arguments. And
Really? Huh.
Yeah, someone came to me about 2 years ago, actually, right now, almost exactly 2 years ago, and said, and if there's one guy on the planet I want to debate, it's Sam, because Sam's a nice guy. I like Sam.
Yeah, he has a nice meditation app. I've used it for a year.
Yeah.
And I stopped, but yeah, he's interesting.
Well, he's a closet atheist. He's not really an atheist. People need to know that. Because you don't meditate. I mean, meditation is a spiritual, it improves your spiritual health. And someone might say, well, what's a spirit, or what's, and I would say, okay,
that's what he would probably say. He would probably disagree with.
Right. Well, no, I would say, all right, Sam, what's gravity? What's electricity? What's magnetism? What's light? Like, science can't tell me what any of those things are. So you're going to actually put that same restraint on me when I say spirit. Science doesn't know what any of those things are.
Yeah,
we can measure it.
Do experiments and stuff.
Yeah, we can do experiments. Look, if consciousness is fundamental to existence, right? If you just look at this model that the entire universe is a byproduct of some consciousness beyond space and time, the only way to study consciousness is with consciousness.
That's true.
And that's what meditation is. That's what Socrates said when he said, "Noti seotan," know thyself, know that consciousness that is beyond space and time is your consciousness. And you can, this is what the allegory of Plato's cave's all about. And that, and the scientists will say, and that you could, that the model that consciousness is beyond space and time is a testable hypothesis, that you can actually experience that yourself and realize the truth of that. And the scientists will say, well, how are you going to share that? and I'll say, well, share it with whom? If you become one with that consciousness beyond space and time, there's no one to share it with. There's only one consciousness. It's the biggest joke.
Okay, the consciousness beyond space and time. All right.
Yeah, this is called idealism. It's in the videos and it's in all my films. But
well, I realize there's a certain feeling you get when you're on like psychoact, like LSD or like psilocybin mushrooms, or like meditating very deeply, that you are connected to everything else. I didn't really have that in my life yet.
You're but it's not connected to everything else. That's wrong.
Okay.
That's still creating.
I've just heard about this.
No, I understand, but that's still creating dualism. That's creating if in order for me to be connected to you, we're still separate.
Okay.
The realization is that there is no connection. That there is
no connection because it's one thing. Yeah.
It's just one thing, exactly. And Sam got his entire start because in 1996 or something, 95, and he was at Stanford. I would have been playing Frisbee, and he was, at Stanford. And I know, I probably bumped into him, but he took ecstasy, took some Molly or something at a party. And
ecstasy! But ecstasy is like, isn't it like?
I've never
taken different than LSD. Like I feel like LSD and psilocybin, the mushrooms, they are different from ecstasy. I feel like ecstasy actually destroys your brain, but like the others,
but with ecstasy, it's still the barriers between where you begin and I start.
They break down. Okay.
I think there's a little
similar
nod to Tom York there. God, we're going all over the map. Anyway, science is wrong. I wrote this paper that I submitted to all the major journals, and all I did in this paper was I laid this out and I said, here's 10 testable predictions that if the brain produces consciousness, none of these should be true. I provided all the site, and this is on, there's a link on my website called What is Life? I lay out all the arguments. I'll debate anybody, any scientist out there, any philosopher, any spiritualist, religious person, come on the show, and we'll have a conversation. But all these tests, none of which should be true. And what the test, and I didn't cite any of the predictions, and they've all been tested thousands of times, because the question wasn't.
And they are true. Like you're saying, these hypotheses are true. Therefore, it can't be the case that the brain produces consciousness.
All these tests demonstrate that human consciousness operates beyond space and time.
All right.
Now a scientist, and Sam Harris or one of these guys, Daniel Dennett or Richard Dawkins or someone will come back and they'll be stuck in their paradigm, their ideology, and say, well, it's possible that the human brain is capable of producing a phenomena that goes beyond space and time. It's like, come on, that's horseshit. Come on, here's the testable predictions. These should not be true. Can we agree on this or not? And because they don't even have a legitimate hypothesis for how the brain even produces consciousness, not to mention this phenomena that goes beyond space and time. It's just, the model's wrong. Had we had in the 1840s all these results from these studies on human consciousness, had we had the meta-analysis across all the religions, had we had the findings from quantum mechanics and modern physics, scientific materialism would have never seen the light of day. It would have never gotten past any kind of peer review process. But in the 1840s, we didn't have any of that information. It seemed like a logical hypothesis. Sure, life emerges from matter, blah, 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 blah. It's wrong.
Yeah, well, I feel like I'm out of my area of expertise here. I don't know anything about quantum. People always talk about like Deepak Chopra with their fake
I know
the quantum stuff. But you said something very interesting. Like there is a question that I want to get back to, because you sounded a lot like with the whole technology thing, like with society going downhill in a way, like Ted Kaczynski, like the Unibomber. Like I recently read the Unibomber Manifesto. What do you think about that guy? He's insane, right?
There's a. I've posted, I made a meme once where there was like 40 kids at a bus stop. You can look at this. If you can find this photo itself online, because there's a million of them. You've seen it yourself. There's 40 people at a bus stop and they're on their phones.
It's a meme. Yeah.
And then I took a photo like that and I said, I think Ted Kaczynski was right. Maybe
really?
Of course. I mean, maybe he shouldn't have been blowing up people. And
but in a way there is some truth to what he said, that technology
dehumanizes.
Like people are unhappy in a way.
I never met the guy. I've never read the manifesto, but the idea, the
premise, read it. It's short. You'd like it.
I don't read. I'm not a reader.
What? Oh, I love reading. I read a book a week. Reading is great.
Great. Well, read my paper. Read my What is Life page.
I will.
All right. So now the Jewish thing.
All right. The Jewish question. Back to the Jewish question.
The reason that 75%, and this is really relevant to ultimate Frisbee. The reason that, and I've got a story, but the reason that 75% of the lawyers in the United States are either Jewish or Catholic is because and someone had written a book, and if anybody knows this book or the research that went into it, I would love to know, because it's off my radar. I found it once, I can't find it. Someone in the 90s, let me just finish this thought, because I know someone in the 90s had done all this research, and they were saying that because Judaism, it's God's law, that the lines between law and religion, they're not even blurry. I mean, it's just they're completely conflated together with Judaism. And then Catholicism is a derivative of that. The way that Catholic and Jewish minds operate is very structured and very argumentative. You ever get in an argument with a Jewish person or a Catholic person? Like that's how we're wired. Although I would say it's not wired. It's not. Yes, it's partially genetic, but it's much more hereditary in terms of instinctive behavior. Now you understand why I've gone off the deep end, understanding the differences in scientific models and where we are historically, because the model's wrong. If you look at it from a generational, ancestral, instinctive, where we have all these patterns over many, many thousands of lifetimes of how our brain functions, you can see why diversity is an important thing to understand. Why are certain people better at this, and their unique talents are here and there and everywhere, and we should value all these. I didn't say anything negative about Jewish people. I just said we have these unique qualities and we should embrace them and honor them.
Yeah, I agree.
So Irv Kalb's, whatever his consciousness was, whatever his mental habits and patterns and traits and tendencies went into the rules of ultimate. That's worth an asterisk and saying, okay, well, that's interesting, Frank. How do you think that? No one's actually ever asked me before. Well, that's interesting, Frank. How do you think that got manifested? What are the implications and the ramifications of that? No, instead it's, you're an anti-Semite. Let's just knock it off.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question about the Jewish thing? Like,
I think
satisfactorily?
I think I get you now. I wanted to do a slight nitpick because you said 70% of lawyers are Jewish or Catholic, but that only becomes relevant when you know the percentage of Jewish or Catholic people in the whole population.
Oh, it's like 10%, or it's like
really
low.
way lower.
It's really low.
So it makes sense now. So
right, and you don't get that same disproportionality in engineering and doctors and other fields that you
do, like in Nobel Prizes.
But in the
you get it.
It's not 75%.
It's ridiculously high. There are 10 million Jews in the world, but they get like whatever 20 or 50% of the Nobel Prizes. And I feel like that has to do with the higher intelligence of Ashkenazi Jews. Like they have like measurably higher IQs. I don't know if IQ makes sense as a metric, scientifically, but
I understand. It's difficult to measure. Anyway, it's fast. I find it fascinating, and I think it's worth. It's like I said about the current upside downness of diversity is, we can't look at that. We can't look at that. We have to have a proportionate number of people representative in whatever activity. That's not diversity. That's not
diversity. That's bullshit. That's actual racism or sexism or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, the world's not fair. You can't.
But we can make it fairer. We can make it more fair, right?
But every attempt to artificially level the playing field always ends up the same way, and you end up what you have in Europe, with is just this mediocrity. What are the great innovations that came out of Stalin's USSR or Mao's Cultural Revolution? Out of the society
Gulags.
Out of the society itself. Where's the explosive growth in science and technology, or all this stuff? When you artificially level the playing field, not only are you punishing the elite in whatever way you want to categorize it, but you're also suppressing the lowest common denominator. Like, you're not helping anybody.
It's worse for everyone in the end.
It's worse. Yeah. It's worse for everyone when you try to So how do you? We can identify things in society where things are, where there's wrong and bring justice, but you can't legislate equity. Life's not fair.
I agree. Well, I feel like I would say we could make life fairer, but I feel like legislating equity makes it even more unfair. It makes the situation even worse.
You can't do it. Let's say any attempt that's ever been done has always ended up the same way.
Well, I don't know. I feel like capitalism,
with gulags
and concentration camps. But I'm against state power in general. I feel like the state is dangerous. I'm a bit on the libertarian side, and I also think, like, always this top down stuff. Someone it's always to be seen critically, especially if the state does it. The state has a bad track record, with the gulags and the concentration camps.
Right. And I would, and this goes full circle, and you can kind of see my take on it is that you can talk about capitalism or socialism or all these different things as, there's the problem. To me, science is the problem. In other words, capitalism sitting on top of our current version of science is a form of institutionalized atheism. And I can take that to the bank. And of course, atheists would be like, yeah, and your point is, it's like, no, it is. I can explain this to you easily. This is absolutely true.
I feel like the problem is more with academia than science. Like science, the scientific method is a good method, I feel like. But like the academic institutions, like universities, they don't do their job.
But do you understand what hypothetico-deductivism is?
No, I don't know what these words mean. I know what deduction means and what hypothetical means.
So modern science is 500 years old, although people would bring it back to Aristotle because Sir Francis Bacon, when he started natural philosophy, was just mimicking Aristotle's scientific method of this. Bacon's model of science was what they call inductive, and there was a problem with inductive science. So if you look at it and you see a pattern in nature, and then you say, well, that's how it is, no matter how big the sample size, it's still a finite sample size.
Yeah, that's the problem of induction.
Well, that's the problem with an induction, which is fine, which, by the way, when any scientist says, look how good science works, blah, 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 they're using induction. So it's very easy to refute that argument because the whole basis for their current model is induction is bad. So don't use induction to validate your model. So in the 1840s, they said, we need something, induction's not it, we need something different. So simultaneously, we got scientific materialism that matter is primary to existence, and that everything emerges out of matter. That's materialism or scientific reductionism. And simultaneously, in the same decade, we got hypothetico-deductivism. And hypothetico-deductivism says that, and this is it's very reasonable, it's very rational, it's very logical.
What is it?
That you can never prove a hypothesis, you can only disprove it.
Yeah, that's what Popper, the guy from Austria, also always says.
Right. And you know who Popper, do you know who Popper's number one student was? George Soros.
The billionaire guy.
Well, the atheist who's ruining the world right now.
All right. Well, I don't know that much about George Soros. I know that he's rich.
He's instrumental in trying to take down in transforming the world into his atheistic model. I mean, but the point is there's a direct link between George Soros, Karl Popper, and hypothetico-deductive and what I call postmodern science. And so when I explain, what Karl Popper didn't invent this, but he was probably the biggest proponent of hypothetico-deductivism. Most people don't know that it's what it called. They'll call it Popperism. So Popper would say, I would go up to Karl and I'd say, well, Karl, you know what? I think, based on my research, that the best hypothesis we have right now for understanding evolutionary growth is that reincarnation is the major driving force behind all evolutionary biology. And Karl would say, well, Frank, that's nice, it's interesting, but we can't create testable predictions for reincarnation. Therefore, your hypothesis is pseudoscience. And I would turn around and say, any biologist, any scientist that works under the hypothesis that life is an emergent property out of matter is a pseudoscientist. That's all pseudoscience. There's no evidence at all for it. It's all horseshit. But that's what
maybe you can like test it in the lab. Maybe you can like put chemicals in like a vial or something and hope and reproduce this this soup. How do you call it? This
the primordial stew.
The primordial
first of all, that would be inductive. It wouldn't be, you can't create false positives from that. You can't use Popperism, hypothetical deductivism to test that. And besides that, we've known for, it's coming up on, hold on, let me finish this out. We've known for almost 100 years that we need self-replicating molecules, lipids, and amino acids. Those are the foundational building blocks for life. People have been trying to make life in a test tube for almost 100 years. They haven't been able to do it. The track record's not good. It's not like someone's going to watch this video and go, oh, let's go create life. They've been trying it for decades and decades, and they haven't been able to do it. Their model's not very, but you get my point here. Let me reiterate it. If I go to Carl and I say, look, I've looked at all the different models, to me, the best hypothesis, the most elegant, the one that really is like kind of like a yeah, duh moment, is that reincarnation is the major driving force behind evolutionary biology, that nature is constantly learning. When do the leaves change color? Why does a bird build a nest? All these things in nature is because the universe is organically constantly learning and learning. That's what drives me to share dribbling. Because we have this innate drive to acquire knowledge as human beings. And then once we acquire it, this intense drive to share it. And I desperately want to share this knowledge of dribbling before I go to the grave. And I'm met with all this rigidity, this ideological rigidity, which I go back to Karl Popper and hypothetical deductivism. And it might sound a little nutty, but to me, it's just like a direct link that people's ability to do critical thinking right now is disabled because of ideologies. They just get stuck and this is how it is, and Frank's a lunatic, and there's what he's saying does it like the things that I say what dribbling does defy everything they think is true. And so, that can't be. And then they'll say, well, test it. We want to see the testable hypothesis, but I have to test it in the system that this harebrained ideology.
Well, I disagree. I feel like if these people would actually adhere to Karl Popper, they would actually give you a chance. They would. There would be players lining up, getting coached by you, and then winning games. But right? But they are so close-minded that they don't. Even
I have to. But the laboratory is these rules that are based on. You can't separate the rules and the framework of identity politics and this mashup of play-based sports and continuous play sports where there's almost no guardrails in ultimate Frisbee. The framework of
dribbling is not against the rules, right? Dribbling is except the bullshit rules, the spirit rules, maybe in some way. But you can like the WIFDIF has changed their rules for 2021 until 2024. You can have, after catching the disc, you can have 2 contacts with the ground without decelerating. I know you like this decelerating, but you can have like a give and go type, maybe dribbling.
The UPA did that in 1995. I call that a Frank rule. There's a lot of rules that are Frank rules.
So you do have an impact.
I have a huge impact. There's a rule. So you're on defense. All right. And the disc is floating. Right. And so you delay it on your fingernail. Are you with me? You know what delay means? So you're on defense and you delay it on your fingernail. At this point, you don't have possession. You have not taken possession. No. You don't have control of a non-spinning disc, correct?
Yeah.
But you don't have possession. So if you don't have
hold on, one of the questions I have written down for you.
That's funny. You don't have control of a non-spinning disc. So now you're moving towards the end zone. You're on defense still. The other team still technically has possession because it hasn't stopped spinning. It hasn't hit the ground. You haven't caught it. So you move towards
catch it in the end zone and have a Callahan.
Correct. And this is a Frank rule. One of the people that was on the rules committee for the 11th edition was there, I'm sure. He bet me $1 million that it wasn't legal, and he owes me $1 million because how the fuck is that illegal? They explicitly in the 11th edition made that illegal. It makes no sense at all. How are you advancing the disc if you've never taken possession of it? Like, why would they even make that illegal? I mean, it's the
Maybe
most
it's
insane
a
out of a set of rules that are insane. It's the most insane.
They're probably so set in their ways that they don't want a radical change. But what I wanted to ask you, like bouncing the disk, I wanted to ask you, what if I bounce the disk, not spinning it, but just bouncing it?
Well, we call that airbrushing.
Airbrushing, yeah, I forgot the word.
And airbrushing is legal in disk hoops.
In disk hoops, which is your.
This is my derivation of Ultimate, my third generation derivative. It's legal. It's funny because I'm really good at airbrushing. I almost never do it.
Do you do the spinning move?
And actually in Ultimate, in the UPA, no, I don't do that. But it was just an argument. It's like critical thinking people explain to me, why that guy hasn't paid me $1 million. It was almost like he was so pissed off that I was right, that he went into the rules committee and made that a rule because to prove me wrong. And there's no, his name's Chris Sherwood, by the way. Like, explain to me why they put that in the rules. In what universe, in what framework does that even make any sense?
Well, they don't want to change the game. That's the reason. They don't want the game.
No. This is a frank rule. It's a frank rule. It's because I did it in a game and they said, well, that should be illegal. You can't do that. It says you can't delay the disc. That's on offense. Like, it's a frank rule. Trust me. They made it because of me.
Yeah. Of course, they made it because of you, because they were like, well, it should be like.
Well, no, it wasn't they. It was just one guy.
Because this guy was like, Frisbee shouldn't be like this Ultimate.
No, Frank can't be right.
Can't be right.
I'm not going to lose this argument to this guy. I'm not going to pay him $1 million. That's not, no. Anyway, the dribbling thing with 2 steps. Yeah, that I had been doing that since like 1989, 88 even, and they finally made that legal in 95, which as they should have, and they should have realized then that the entire rule set needs to be overhauled, because at that point the game went from a play-based game to a continuous play game, although it always had been, but nobody knows it. But Ultimate was created as a play-based game. All the rules are continuous play rules, and the game needs to be overhauled. They're just, again, if anyone applied critical thinking to the game and to what I'm saying, my interview with Johnny Bansfield, my interviews with Matthew Arrett, the game needs an overhaul.
Yeah, I agree. It should evolve.
Evolve? No. It needs
a radical change, like a revolution.
A revolution, right? Not a. It's like this was mostly created by a 19-year-old Jewish kid, and like that
smart
means
kid.
He's a smart kid, and he was playing a lot of flag football. I mean, that's an important thing to say. I mean, there's this joke in the movie Airplane from
is that I think I know the movie.
It's a funny comedy.
It's the guy with the gray hair, right?
Yeah, Peter Graves. Yeah. You ever been in a men's locker room, Johnny? There's a Jewish joke in there, a Jewish sports joke. Everyone who's seen the movie knows what I'm talking about. Like what the Airplane movie gets to get away with that, but I don't. Like, people know, like, our Irv was playing flag football and American football. Like, we had a name for players who played flag. I grew up, we played tackle, in my neighborhood. Like,
that's real football, right?
Yeah, flag football is, it's for pussies. Is
it non-contact?
Yeah, it's for pussies.
Okay, so it's like a nerd kind of.
It's a nerd, right? It's for pussies. It's just for, I don't want to get hurt. Right. And it's not neither good or bad, but it's like, there shouldn't be anything wrong with saying a 19-year-old Jewish kid who was playing flag football came up with this rule set that means something. And there's nothing anti-Semitic about that whatsoever. It's like you're saying, we have all these Jewish guys winning Nobel Prizes.
I think I see that as a compliment. Like
Right,
they're smart, they're intelligent.
Right, but how many Jewish guys do we see winning? The NBA's Most Valuable Player award every year.
Yeah, they're not as athletic. No, I agree.
Hey! Come on, that's anti-Semitic. Hey, now. I mean, yeah. So, right, diversity, great. Jews we got a lot of disproportionate number of Jews winning Nobel prizes. We have a disproportionate fewer number of Jews winning the NBA MVP award. Big deal. That's how that's a true statement. Anyway, hopefully I am not into too much deep water. I know people are going to skewer me for this.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like maybe we shouldn't record this.
No, absolutely. This is here's my challenge, which is that I think people like you and me actually outnumber the elites and ultimate, and yet they've successfully
silenced.
They've disabled our ability to connect and communicate with each other. Like how do, they've got the gatekeepers. The AUDL is meant to be a professional sport. I'm the greatest player ever by a long shot. There's no close second. Trust me. I can't post on the AUDL Twitter page.
Have you been blocked?
I've been blocked there. I've been blocked from the USAU YouTube channel. I've been banned from Reddit. This guy, Brian Sherry, had me on Ultiworld for 2 days. Then he kicked me off for what he said was sexist comments, where there was absolutely nothing sexist that I said.
Yeah.
So all the gatekeepers out there have silenced me, and I'm not being a victim about it. The victims are the people like you who agree with me, who want to have a voice and say, wait a second, I think Frank's right. And, there's what's Frank's crime?
Shut up. I'm not a victim. I don't see myself as a victim.
No, you're victims in the sense, not in that sense, in the sense that it's everything's upside down in this whole cultural Marxism thing. You're a victim in the sense that we lack the political capital that we normally would have if we had access to the community. Why has Ultiworld not done an expose on my Johnny Bansfield interview? I mean, anyone with critical thinking who watches that and sits back and says, okay, let's listen to what Frank's saying. I can't imagine anyone saying, yeah, the rules are fine the way they are. They don't need to be overhauled.
Mm-hmm.
It's a framework of a play-based framework, and you have a whole bunch of guardrails and rules associated with the difference between play-based and a continuous play sport. There's over 20 of them. They need to be yanked out of the rules. They have no place in a continuous play sport, which Ultimate is, obviously. No. And so why hasn't Ultiworld done a story? Why can't I post on Reddit? So you're a victim in the sense that it's a bigger challenge for us to.
But it's not specific to Ultimate. I think it's a cultural problem in general. Like Donald Trump's been bad on Twitter too, just like you have for that.
Right. Well, it's they think it's okay.
Yeah, they think like censoring people, being a bigot is cool, not letting these other voices
be heard. They think they're censoring bigots, and they're engaging in the very bigotry that they're accusing people of, and they don't even know it. Exactly. They think, oh, that's fine,
Yeah, but it's all just virtue signaling anyway.
It's not good. But what the challenge is for us, Alexej, is how do we build political capital? How do we create, and without being ideological, in creating our own? This is one of my laws of ideologies. Ideologies always create an equal and opposite ideology.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you had Catholic, the church, Christianity, then that created postmodern science, and then.
Yeah, you had the Nazis and the communists.
Right. It's like, and what was this guy's name you were talking about with Warren Buffett?
Charlie Munger. That's the partner of Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
Berkshire Hathaway. He's a billionaire. Well, it's hard to get an interview with him. He's
fine.
a billionaire. You can try, but
Oh, he's an old guy. Yeah, I'll have him on.
yeah, there are all these public intellectuals that like this whole intellectual dark web kind of people. You know,
Yeah,
the
those
Jordan
guys.
Petersons of the world.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson couldn't carry my jock.
Yeah, he's strange, but he's also
No,
very
I love
interesting.
Jordan, but you know, he falls up. It's so funny because, you know, again with the ideologies, and I'm going to be having a world expert on the first 3 centuries of Christianity, because
That's interesting.
it's fascinating because Jesus was not an ideologue by any stretch, and Christianity is highly ideological. Like, do the math. Something's gone horribly wrong here. So Jordan, I love Jordan. You know, he's so anti-ideology in all his things. And then he debates Sam about Christianity. Like, Jordan, come on, man. Can't you, like, do you not understand that you're guilty of the exact same thing that, you know, with just a different name that you're fighting against? Like, ideologies are ideologies, man.
I don't know. Maybe he was open-minded when debating him. Like, for me, ideology means you have like a set of beliefs that you're not willing to let go, even if the evidence or whatever contradicts it. You don't have an open mind. You don't really care what the other person says. You just want to get your point across. You know, being non-open-minded. That is for me ideology. Clinging to a set of ideas.
That's
Having
Jordan.
Principles is good, but like there's something different. Yeah.
That's Jordan, where he, you know, I can listen to him all day long talk about postmodern neo-Marxism, and then he'll start talking about Christianity, and it's like that he goes directly. He's very ideological. It's like, come on, Jordan, knock it off. Yeah, Jesus.
So you are not Christian.
Oh, I'm Christian. Absolutely.
You are Christian. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do I believe that, you know, that Jesus was the Son of God? No. Do I believe that he died on the cross for our sins? No. Do I believe his mom was a virgin? No. Do I believe? I don't believe the Nicene Creed. Believe. I don't believe any of that.
I don't believe in the literal truth of that, but there is some kind of metaphorical truth. I feel like there's always what Jordan Peterson says. He says truth is not what the thing literally says. Truth is more like if you live your life according to the principles laid out in the Christian Bible, maybe you're going to have a good life. It works. There are things that kind of work in practice. No?
I like to do a meta-analysis. I mean, I have a very scientific approach to truth. And I have this definition of truth that I really enjoy, which is that truth is that which doesn't change. If it changes, it's not real. All right. And there's a part of you, Alexej, that's never changed. All right. So let's say you run, I don't know, 25, 30 years old?
27.
Yeah. So let's say you bump into somebody that you were in 5th grade. You haven't seen them in 17 years. All right. So you're looking at them and saying, wow, look how much they've grown up. You're seeing all this change in that other person. But meanwhile, that the observer in you doesn't think that you've changed at all. And meanwhile, they're having the exact same experience. They're like, oh, look how Alexej's grown up. He's changed. Oh, look how handsome he is. Stunningly gorgeous.
Yeah, I agree. Like your consciousness doesn't feel like it's changed. Like I feel the same, like perceiving stuff like it was when I was 5 years old.
So go back to my definition of truth. The truth is that which doesn't change. Everything around us is ephemeral. So some things, protons last longer than electrons, but everything changes. So the truth is that which doesn't change. And Socrates, noti seotan, Krishna, who said tattva masi, thou art that. You know, Jesus talked about redemption and salvation. In ancient Judaism, in Hebrew, there's this word that's pronounced or, that means literally to become light. Buddha talked about moksha and liberation, that they all talked about the same thing in that context. You know, Socrates said, noti seotan, know thyself. And the self is capitalized. It's a capital S. The self is that, thou art that. so if from that meta-analysis, we can see that all these masters were saying the exact same thing. This thing about, oh, live these principles, have a nice life. That's great.
Okay, wait a second.
That's not what Jesus was. Jesus, look at the allegory of the cave that Plato talked about. He's talking about enlightenment. It's about talking about exiting the cave of the cave is this apparent reality we exist in, to the truth, which is beyond space and time.
All right. What about the ship of Theseus? Do you know that? It's like this ancient philosophical question where you have like a ship, and then the ship breaks down and you replace the parts, and in the end all the parts have been exchanged, right? So none of the original wood is in the ship, but it is still the ship of Theseus.
Right.
It's still the same ship, although all the original parts are gone.
Right. You're only 7 years old.
Exactly.
Wait, do you know what I mean?
Well,
finish the question. What's the question?
Well, it's no real question. It's just like it kind of relates to the consciousness, but then there's this continues, the ship of Theseus allegory or whatever. It continues. Yeah. What if you replace all the parts of the ship, right? Yeah. Just like my body, all the cells are gone.
That's what I'm saying. Your oldest cell that I'm looking at, 7 years old. So you are the ship of, So this is part of
the ship of Theseus. That's what I meant. But what if you build the ship? What if you build a ship out of the parts that you removed? And then you have two ships in the end. The ship breaks down, you take a broken part, and with those broken parts, you build a second ship while replacing the first one, like the allegory gets crazy.
Are you talking about transhumanism?
Yeah, in some way I do, yeah.
Yeah, that's all horseshit.
What about artificial
No, hold on. Let me, I'll get to that. It's all the same. They're actually trying to, if you look at it, you think about it, they're trying to create artificial consciousness, which is different from intelligence. What is it? Ship of Atheist?
Theseus.
What the ship of Theseus is saying is that you are not your body.
Yeah.
Right. So if you are not your body, which is, of course, you're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, you're not your gender, you're not any of these things. You're not a software engineer, you're not a mother, those are all ephemeral, temporary states. That's not who you are. And if you buy into that, and that fits certainly with this idea that reincarnation is the major driving force behind all evolutionary biology, then this idea that you can somehow take this consciousness and divide it into two and put it into two different consciousness is indivisible. Like the self, whatever the self is, you can't split the self into two and have two different things.
But maybe you can copy it,
copy it. We're talking about there's this consciousness beyond space and time, and that the entire universe is an epiphenomena of this consciousness, and you want to go out there and divide that consciousness. And I mean, that
not the big one, but
there's no difference.
There's no difference because it's all the same. Okay.
There's the only thing that keeps us from, why can't I levitate that hat behind me is because I have this thing that we call an ego it creates this illusion of separation, but it's just an illusion.
All right. Well, interesting. Food for thought, definitely.
You didn't really expect this, did you?
I did not.
But let's talk about ultimate, because that's really.
Yeah.
I will debate anybody on any of this stuff, including dribbling.
All right. So yeah, it's interesting conversation been so far, but let's get back to ultimate. So I've just have some random questions for you. Yeah. One of them is it actually worth being ambidextrous? Should I focus on my flick or my backhand, or should I actually divert some of the practice time to being able to throw with my left hand really well? Like, what's your opinion? You are ambidextrous, like you put in the effort to be able to throw with both hands. Is it worth it? Do I win games with it?
So by far the biggest value I get out of being ambidextrous is that when I'm idling. Are you familiar with idling? Have you watched?
No, what does that mean? Sorry.
It's all right. Idling is a part of the whole entire dribbling paradigm. And you'll see in soccer a player idle, because dribbling's in soccer and hockey and basketball. It's in a lot of sports. It just means moving around the field with a game object, right? Whatever.
But that's dribbling.
Yeah, I'm talking about dribbling. I understand.
That's dribbling in soccer, right? Moving around with the ball.
Or basketball or hockey. It's moving around with the game object. And like in basketball, if you got a player and he's just coming up the court, and the defender's kind of laying off and he's just kind of dribbling in place. He's not going anywhere, but he hasn't picked up the ball either. I call that idling. So a player in hockey or soccer, all these sports will be idling, meaning they're kind of dribbling. The motor's kind of running, but they're not going anywhere. They're not trying to penetrate. They're just kind of staying dynamic, but at a low RPM. They're just idling.
All right. So maybe that's like a triple threat position. Hold
on. So idling in Ultimate to me is, and I've demonstrated, you'll see it in some of the previous videos. I in fact, the last two videos it's in it, but it's a really important thing to understand. When I have the disc and I haven't started penetrating or doing my thing yet, I'm idling. In other words, I'm constantly pivoting and faking with both hands in all directions, 360 degrees. And my balance predominantly is on top of my pivot foot as opposed to standing out like most players do. And I call that idling. In other words, by idling in basketball, hockey, soccer, and Ultimate, the threat is more viable because you're kind of, you haven't shut off the engine. The engine's running and you're just kind of idling and you're ready to pounce. So ambidexterity is far more valuable when you're idling. And idling, you don't even need to throw. So you should always be having that lefty backhand as you're presenting it as you're idling as a threat. There's no reason any player in the world should not be presenting the lefty backhand as a threat constantly. It's kind of like soccer, jab, 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 punch. It's like there's no reason you can't have that lefty as a jab. Like you're just kind of, it's there. It's a threat. It's a threat. It's a threat. And the more you fake it with it, the more you're going to start throwing it, because you're going to realize, you got the body, the muscle memory in that fake. It's a legitimate fake. You don't, it's.
And it's a credible threat. Like if the person knows he doesn't.
Right. So the more you fake it, the more you throw it, the more credible it becomes. But I don't ever have to throw lefty to have that lefty. Yeah. As long as I'm idling with it, they have to honor it.
All right.
And the more they honor it, the softer they play, the easier it is for you actually throw it. My teams from approximately 1987 onwards were 100% ambidextrous. In other words, if I'm dribbling and you're the rebounder or the hardwood floor, whatever you're calling it, that I'm dribbling off of, it's a requirement for everyone on my team to be able to throw a 2-foot lefty, because I'm going to be dribbling right at you, and all you have to do is throw the disc. Basically, it's almost handing off the baton. You're going to put your arm out there and pull the disc out. So my teams were always 100. Every player on the team would be ambidextrous. That didn't mean they can throw a 20-yard lefty flick or a lefty air bounce backhand or anything like that. But everybody could throw with both hands always since what is that? The last 35 years. Yeah.
Interesting. Idling. Yeah. Do you kind of rotate around on the pivot foot while idling?
Absolutely.
Is that a thing that's what you do, right?
Yeah, right. Because it's not like basketball and those other games where you can idle and move. Because you can't move in Ultimate. Idling has to take the form. You almost have to overcompensate, because you have to keep the foot still with the fakes. And, like I said, it's just keeping the motor running at a low idle. You're just, You haven't hit the gas yet, but you haven't turned off the engine either. So I classify idling as part of dribbling, even though you're not throwing the disc at all. But this is a it's kind of a revolutionary idea, just in terms of identifying it as a tactic and naming it. Idling is, here's what idling is, and it has a definite intention to it, which is the same thing that dribbling does. It's applying pressure, leverage on the defense. Idling creates an enormous amount of leverage, even though you're not throwing the disc. But you're dynamic. You're constantly faking up and
the
unders.
Defense has to react, and
they have to honor it. They have to. You make it legitimate, and they have to respect it.
All right. Interesting. All right. Next question.
Yeah.
All right. I got a question regarding like hucking the disc. Yeah, throwing it deep, because I noticed like a lack of emphasis in your writings on, because like the dribbling makes the, like in the end, like there's a video with Dylan Freechild where that you kind of comment on, where he starts kind of doing give and go moves, and then all of the defensive players have to go very close to him. They're basically poaching their others.
He had no idea what he accomplished in that, and what he accomplished is outstanding. He's got what is the field size? 70 by 40, let's say. So that's 2,800 square yards. 2,800 square yards, and he's got 4 defenders in about 15 square yards, which leaves 3 defenders for 2,785 square yards, and he jerked off. I mean, like, he had no idea what he accomplished. That's huge leverage, and he just shot his wad and like, okay, I'm going to run away now. Like,
he did use.
So that's the difference. Excuse me. Between dribbling and give and go is intentionality. Like there's a specific, the whole intention behind dribbling is to leverage. There's no real other reason. But in answer to your question about hucking and stuff,
hucking's great, right?
Dribbling is a tactic. It's not a strategy. It's not it's not a philosophy. So a tactic is an atomic element, like a flick is a tactic, and a pivot's a tactic, and in-cut's a tactic. It's just an elementary executable line of code of software. It's like, okay. So hucking is a strategic question or a philosophical
question.
Is
strategic. Hucking is strategic, whereas dribbling is tactical.
Correct.
All right.
So the tactic, let's say it's the year's 1970, and there's 2 throws in the game, and neither of them are flicks, right? I mean, who knows who threw the first flick? But back in that 1970, we threw mostly just backhands.
Yeah.
And then someone comes along and says, "Hey, I got this new tactic. It's called a flick. Well, do you huck with it?" Like, you understand how the question doesn't make sense? Like, well, no, it's a tactic. How you deploy that tactic
up to you
is up to you. The leverage that dribbling gives you facilitates hucking, but I have this thing I like to say about hucking. One of 2 things happens after you huck the disc, and neither of them are good. You're either you either end up playing defense or you end up playing defense.
Okay, yeah, because you scored the point.
You either score the point or it's a turnover.
Yeah.
And I consider dribbling like either skiing. I prefer snowboarding, but it's like a run. Or it's like a run down the slopes. And like, why end that? Like I said, I prefer have my boot on their neck. And
never score, just dominate them.
No, you score, but you do it in a way that beats them into submission. I mean, that's really what's fun.
That's what's fun now, beating your opponent.
There's nothing. Why should that be a controversy? Because, I mean, to me, that's what, especially like it's not track and field, but especially in game sports, the mental edge is the best edge. You can have a physical edge. Your team could be stronger, faster, quicker than everyone else, or you can have a tactical edge that's above the physical advantage. Tactical edge, you might not be physically superior than your opponent. They may be dumb as oxes, but built like freaking Adonises. But a tactical edge means you've got more throws, better pivots. You know, your tactics, your toolbox of different tools and skills you use is better. And then you can have a strategic advantage is, okay, you may not have the best physical bodies or the best tactics, but your strategy is superior. So you can defeat teams that are superior with tactics or physics. And then the best edge is the philosophical or the mental edge. And that's what all sports gravitate towards, the mental advantage. Because once you have the mental advantage, the other team, part of a mental advantage is the other team knows that that they know that you can do whatever you want, when you want, how you want, and they can't stop you. So Hucking and
I want to get there. I just have the physical edge right now. I have no tactical edge, nothing. I try to be faster than the opponent.
Yeah.
And but I don't have the other, like I need to get to these other levels.
Right.
I actually played against Dylan Freechild once, but I didn't D him. But he complimented me on being fast. But, it was frustrating.
Yeah. So Hucking, so that's Hucking. Like Hucking, I could huck all the time. In fact, Hucking becomes so easy because as I'm both dribbling and idling, I'll have just wide open. The deep defenders get really lulled into a false sense of security because they're so keyed on what's happening around the disc and then the secondary tier that they lose awareness a lot of, well, let's say the opportunity vectors for a huck are a lot more dynamic. Like if it's a forced sideline and it's conventional offense, the threat vectors for a huck are pretty consistent and predictable. It's always, you as a deep defender, you kind of know when and where and how it's going to be coming on a huck. Whereas in a dribbling based, idling based offense, it's not predictable at all. The huck vectors that they come from anywhere. They're constantly changing back and forth, and it's way more dynamic. But I've found that as I'm doing that, I get a lot of easy huck scores where you just catch the deep defender flat-footed and you just put it in. It's kind of it's a boring score because
I've beaten them into submission enough.
I've beaten them into submission. I've got a wide open huck vector, and I'm balanced and I'm locked and loaded as I'm idling. So I'm going to have a better mechanical advantage on my throws as opposed to a conventional. And I can deliver something that's faster, a throw that gets there quicker and is more accurate against a defender that's flat-footed. So Hucking is better with this offense, if anything.
All right, interesting.
Yeah.
So
Any more?
Yeah, I still have some, or an interesting observation. You have this player efficiency rating, which I find very interesting. And I find this whole metric makes a lot of sense.
It's awesome. It's the best. I look at this, if you don't mind me ranting for a little bit. So player efficiency rating is one of many stats that I advocate. The stats that are out there in the world are unbelievably without meaning or value, and they're wrong. The idea that some narcissist puts up a huck and gets an assist is like, that's actually not what the word assist means. Who are you assisting? You're assisting the dopamine in your brain, the neurotransmitter response. So in my system, an assist is the person who set, right. No, it's retarded. So it is
retarded. It makes no sense. No?
It makes no sense. So it
sets the wrong incentives too.
It sets the wrong incentive. So I've got I differentiate between scores, goals, and assists. A score is when you throw, if you throw the goal, it's a score. If you catch the goal, it's a goal. If you set up the score, that's an assist. And then I weight them that statistically you get 1 point for a score, 1 point for a goal, and 2 points for an assist. So you want to, like, an assist is something that's, and in my system, it's a lot more obvious. Well, look what he did. Look at the leverage he applied. And because of all that leverage, then he assisted a score and gave him, it's like basketball, get the ball to the open shooter. Like he actually did something and should get credit for what he did that was selfless or whatever that led to a score, instead of some narcissist who probably traveled and had horrible throwing mechanics. And the receiver had to make a layout catch on a garbage throw, and somehow he gets an assist on that. No, but player efficiency rating. If any team had a PER of 1 for the entire team, they would be pretty hard to beat. They would be impossible to stop. It's just it's a very powerful metric to chase after.
I agree. Yeah. I'll try to measure it somehow. Maybe designate someone on the sidelines making statistics, but he needs to have a stopwatch as well too.
It's really, so I did it for a long time, and so you basically want to, for anyone who doesn't know, it's basically your throwing percentage divided by your average time of possession. Average time of possession is how long is the disc in your hands each time you catch it. So I try to get that under 1 second, and I try to have a personal throwing percentage of over 95%. So I'm throwing, and if I'm having a bad day and my PER is down to 90 or something, and I'm trying to, I'll just do nothing but throw short throws just to get, and throw short 100% guaranteed catchable throws just to get my PER up. And when you do that and you stop trying to score, you stop trying to do everything, your team wins. Yeah. And if you want to really measure it as a team, you have to videotape it and then go back and transcribe
it. And then, good idea. Just have a video.
And you can't, you're not going to sit there and go frame by frame and say, okay, that was 218 milliseconds, and that it's got to be, oh, that was a half second, that was a quarter second, that was a second, of course, that was 10 seconds. Yeah. But you can get some pretty meaningful results from that. And of course, the completion percentage is, that's easy. Yeah, I have a more comprehensive version, a total PER. Not only includes your PER, but a level of
indirect one. Yeah,
the level of indirection.
That's what my question actually was, or like my remark, because what I always notice, like a thing that makes you a good player is also like you have, like, especially at lower levels, not all the players are as good, but if you still throw to a bad person, and that's how you win head tournaments in the evil way. Just don't throw to the bad people, because they're gonna turn the disc. They're gonna throw it to the ground immediately, and that is just something. It's food for thought. It's good that your metric captures that, because like maybe there are players
So we have. There's this, I don't know, Filipino girl or something, TT in the Bay Area. Forget her name. And my friends and I used to have this TT PER where we made it fun.
I get it. Okay.
Incorporate those players, and it was actually, it made it a lot of fun. It's like, okay, how can I incorporate her or anybody, any of these
so
players,
that she doesn't turn the disc over when she has it?
Yeah, and it's fascinating because you have far more responsibility, you're far more empowered than you think you are. In a conventional offense, if you throw to TT or who, metaphorically, whoever that person is, and they pivot down the sideline and of course you're going to get a turnover. But in a dribbling based offense and a motion offense, you can you can mitigate that a lot and take control over it. And by virtue of how you're, doing your thing, to incorporate those players and be inclusive of them. Inclusivity is a big thing with Ultimate, right? You can be inclusive of those players and have them and increase your PER. But the point is about that level of indirection on the PER stat. So again, for people who aren't aware, you include not only your throws, but the throws that you throw to. So if I throw to you, Alexej, and every time you catch the disc, your average time of possession is 3, and your throwing percentage is 50%, and you're a great player. You're not a mediocre player, hypothetically. I'm not throwing to you. I'm going to ice you because you're killing me. You're taking my numbers. Otherwise, throughout the whole team, I've got a PER of 0.98. But when I add you into my PER, my PR drops to 0.5. You're iced. I'm just, you're killing me. So it really makes it incumbent on, it just helps your decision-making process, because that player, you in this scenario, might be considered to be like this great player. Could be Dylan Freechild or who, you know what I'm saying? But this statistic, all of a sudden, things pop out, which is what statistics in sports really should do. Is make things, expose things, bring things apparent that are not obvious. Oh, come on, Dylan Freechild, he's the best player. Well, no, look at this with my PER, he's killing me. Whoever, I don't know. I've never played with Dylan, but there's a lot of players in my life that were on paper great players. You would never ice them, but if you're selfishly, which would be a good thing for your team, trying to maintain a PER of 1.0 or higher, you're going to ice those players. They're killing your numbers.
Yeah, interesting. It's highly interesting. So I'll try to measure it and actually calculate it in one of my next games.
Just pay attention to it. Those two things. Get your average time of possession under 1. So if you hold on to the disc for a 5 count, like how many throws?
Already failed. Yeah.
How many throws do you have to do to get down to
to make it up? Yeah.
To make it up, right? It's a lot of throws. And that happens. Sometimes I hold the disc on for a 5 count. That's just, you just have to make sure that you're aware, and then try to throw over 95%, which means throwing lots of short, easily catchable, easily throwable. Anything else?
Well, I've got a lot of other stuff written down, but honestly, my brain is getting whacked. I'm getting low energy. It's been highly interesting, but I need to my brain needs to think about this. It's been a very interesting conversation, right? So it was nice. It was interesting.
Yeah, we
unexpected.
We went from science to Christianity to, philosophy.
Everything. It's all one thing.
It's all the same thing.
The same thing.
And and please tell me if I've said a single thing here that's ideological. I mean, I'm just asking that to the general viewer. If anyone has any questions and wants to converse about any of the stuff or anything else, you send me an email like Alexej did at dogsandbaskets@gmail.com. I'd love to have these conversations. I find this fun and intellectually stimulating and very powerful, and it's a very I'm very grateful, Alexej, for you reaching out, and this has been a lot of fun.
It's been fun. Thanks for the conversation. I got to catch my plane to Paganello.
Oh man,
you can't dribble on the sand, right?
Beach should have never happened. Mixed ultimate should have never happened, but beach it shouldn't have. Mixed only happened because of uglyman. And there are 2 times in my life I've flattened women who is like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, I go for a play and I just flatten them because they're in a place that they, like unexpected and like what, and mixed only happened. Mixed was a byproduct of uglyman, where just droves of players they were so tired of the arguing and the bickering and the ugliness of it. They created their own cool part, and it almost killed the game. But beach is the worst. Why don't you take my 150 best moves and neutralize it by having me playing quicksand? No, thank you.
Oh,
Oh yeah, I mean,
quicksand, yeah.
it's like tie my hands behind my back and have me put on a 20-pound bag on my back to run around. Like beach makes no sense at all.
But
Like
beach becomes less physical. It's less physical. I don't like I like grass more. I like 5 versus 5 grass the most, or turf. But beach is, it's frisbee. You throw frisbees around. It's still very interesting.
But you're taking at a tactical level. Let's say I've got 200 tactics. You're eliminating 150 of my tactics. You're making me.
Yeah, but Frank, maybe you can make up some beach tactics as well. Maybe there are tactics in the quicksand that you can.
No.
Like
sense. It's such a non sequitur. It's just, it makes no sense at all. It's like, no, it's, yeah. Anyway, you have a good time though.
Thank you.
All right, Alexej, we'll talk later. Let's do this again. Let's go to, where are you going? France, and let all this stuff percolate. Italy.
It's Italy.
Go to Italy. Let this stuff sink in. It'll be hard for you to juxtapose this phone call on the beach in terms of watching.
Yeah, it will be
watching
really
it play because none of this translates. Most of it
doesn't translate to beach. Yeah.
I mean, maybe idling does.
Idling, also the player efficiency rating. I
wouldn't want to have a player efficiency rating on the beach. Mine would be horrible.
But it would still work. Yeah, well, it's horrible compared to grass, but if you compare the player efficiency rating, PER of the different players, I think it would still be meaningful. I feel like players with a lower PER will still be better.
No, with higher. You want higher.
Higher, yeah.
Yeah, you want higher efficiency.
You want to be efficient, yeah.
Right. So it measures how efficient you are. If you have a PER of like 0.25, which a lot of AUDL players are, they're probably not even that. That's not efficient. That means every second on average, or however you want it, whatever unit of time you want to measure with, the number of calories burned, the amount of work done by the rest of your team, is staggering. It's not efficient. You've got this game that has this enormous offensive bias built into the rules, and the way people play is extraordinarily efficient. That's why everybody's so hung up on athleticism and the physical advantage. It's not even tactical. It's because, we got to run hard. We got to run fast.
Yeah, that's also fun. Exercise is fun. Exercise is great. But,
but go run a track meet. That's not... What's fun is being 60 years old and being unstoppable. And
that's true. Winning games. Winning is fun.
Boot on the neck, baby. Alexej, I'll let you go. You go have fun. Right. And we'll talk later.
Thanks, Frank.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.